Okay, so let's look at the next section. And the next section is about speed reading and reading in general. So let's ask ourselves that question, well, what is reading? Well, of course, reading is simply we're seeing information and we're seeing groups of letters that form particular words. Okay, so we recognize the pattern of letters, we recognize the word, and then we understand it. So that's basically what we're doing when we're reading. And also, we're possibly saying every word as we read it as well. Now, think about this for a moment. If you can remember back to when you were beginning to read, what you probably needed to do, if we take a word like cat, so what you probably needed to do was something like this. You needed to look at the first letter, C, then you needed to look at A, and then you needed to look at T. So you went C-A-T, cat, and then you knew the word cat. Now, do you need to do that anymore? No, you simply see the word, the brain recognizes it, and you see some sort of a picture or something in your mind of a cat. So we don't need to focus on every letter. Could we not then say that, could we take a group of words, and rather than focusing on every single word, we notice the pattern of words, make sense of what it means, like this is a lovely dog. We see those group of words, and we picture the dog, a lovely dog, and we have it. Okay, so going from one letter to one word, can we not similarly go from one word to a group of words? Okay, so that's really what reading is. It's pattern recognition, groups of letters that have some sort of a meaning for us. Okay, so what slows reading down then is the next question. Well, of course, there's a number of things that can slow it down. One we've already mentioned earlier on, and that's concentration. Needless to say, we need to have our attention on what we're reading. One that Samuel Johnson, an old English writer, once said that the true art of memory is the art of attention. The true art of memory is the art of attention. So we want to remember anything, we got to give it our attention. Okay, so we've got to make sure that our concentration is good. And that will often be decided by the goal we've set for ourselves. So we said, okay, what do I want to learn from this book or this chapter or this article or this document? So what do you want to learn from it? And in what time frame would you like to learn it? That gives us a lot more focus, and it'll work our attention muscle so that our concentration is on what we're learning. What else might slow it down? Well, vocalizing. If we have to say every single word, so this is the word I'm reading now, and then this is the next word that I'm reading now. If we're vocalizing, speaking every word, obviously we're limited by the rate at which we can speak. So what if we only had to say every third word or every fourth word? Well, that's going to help speed up the rate at which we read. Another thing that stops a lot is that we're not trusting our mind as well. So have you ever noticed this, that you're reading away in a book from word to word on each line, and you've gone about halfway through one line and then you go back thinking, oh, I'm after forgetting the other word. So that's called regression. So we go back over what we've already read. So what we need to be doing is to keep ourselves moving forward. And believe it or not, to help us with that, we can use a pen as a pointer, or we can use our finger. But use something to keep our eyes moving forward down through the text. Okay, so the pen or our finger can provide a focus for our eyes as it moves down through the text. And another similar thing that can slow us down is what's called eye fixation. What does that mean? It means we fix our eyes on every single word. Like I was saying there, if we fix our eyes on every single letter in every single word, obviously that's going to slow us down. Similarly, if we fix our eyes on every single word, that's going to slow us down. So again, using a pen or using our finger, we can follow the top of the finger, keep ourselves flowing nicely down through the text. Okay, so that slows it down. So what can we do to help speed up our reading? So here's an exercise, I call it the 4-minute exercise. And this can help get the speed up. So we already, earlier on in the course, you read for 1 minute and you measured the number of words per minute that you read. So you can have a look at that now again and think, or you can maybe remember how many words that was, 250, 300 or whatever words per minute. So let's see, can we improve on that? So again, for 1 minute, we're going to read, and we're going to read fast this time. For 1 minute, we're going to measure it. And what I want you to do is I want you to use a pointer, the pen, or your finger to move down through that text. Now, what I'd like you to do, however, is to imagine that your eyes are like scanners. So we're not really reading for comprehension. We're reading for speed. We're reading to get our speed up. Okay, let me just demonstrate with this book, actually a book I wrote myself called The Piper's Tales, how to do the next minute. So what I want you to do, as I said, is to scan with your eyes. Imagine you're scanning down through your eyes. So we're literally following the finger down through each page for 1 minute. Okay? Now suspend your disbelief. We're not reading as such. All we're doing is scanning down through the text, imagining it's going in somewhere, imagining it's going in somewhere. Okay, so let's do that for a moment. All right, so if you get your book open on any page and should be ready for 1 minute, starting now. Okay, excellent. So welcome back. So now we're going to go on to the next minute, which is the third minute. Now this time, what I want you to do is to go about 10 times as fast as you did the last time. Now in order for this to make sense to you, you need to go as fast as you can. Otherwise it won't make sense, right? So for 1 minute, what we're doing is we're literally scanning down through that text fast as we can, fast as we can. It's going in somewhere, going in somewhere. The slowest part is actually the turning of the page. Now be very aware that during that minute, what might happen is the old habit starts to creep in. We start to slow down and say, oh, this is a really interesting bit, right? So what we want to do is to keep ourselves. If that happens, notice it and just move on fast as you can. Going in somewhere, going in somewhere. So for 1 minute, 10 times fast as you can. Remember, the faster you go, the easier this is going to work, the more sense it's going to make for you. Okay, so 1 minute, starting now. Excellent. Now, what we're going to do now, this is minute number 4. So remember, we did the first minute, which was reading for 1 minute normally. Second minute, fast as you can, using our finger as a pointer. Third minute, 10 times as fast as that. And now the fourth minute. And what's the fourth minute? The fourth minute is we're reading for comprehension again. So what I'd like to do is to open the book on any page and note where you're starting from. Okay, put a little X or whatever. And we're going to read so-called normally for 1 minute. Okay, so find that starting point and for 1 minute, starting now. And that's excellent. Okay, so again, let's count the number of lines. So if you go down, just count the number of lines you've read. Multiply that by 10, remember, and that gives you the number of words per minute. Okay, fantastic. Now compare that to your original minute. How many words per minute were you reading then? Now most of you will have increased the number of words per minute that you've read. So then we ask the question, well, how come? Well, let me tell you a story that in 2012 in the World Memory Championship, one of the competitions is to memorize a deck of cards in under 5 minutes. So what sort of speed are people doing that at? Well, there was one Chinese girl, 10 years of age, and she memorized the deck of cards in 1 minute 40 seconds with 100% recall. So it wasn't 60% or 70%, so 100% recall. Okay, so that is letting us know how quickly our brain can process information. Now obviously this girl had trained and so on and so forth, and indeed the world record, the last time I heard anyway, was 35 seconds for memorizing a deck of cards with 100% recall. So our brain can be trained to process information a lot quicker than we think. So really what we're doing in that exercise, the 4-minute exercise, is getting our brain and our eyes to speed up, to get out of old habits. Because sometimes we think, oh, well, you know, I've been reading at this speed for 20 years, so I have to stay at that speed. No, you don't. The only reason you're staying at that speed is because you've been doing it for 20 years. We've got to break out of that. And that exercise helps us break out of old limiting patterns. And on average, the rate of reading will increase over time. And we can also say to ourselves, well, sometimes we do that anyway. Sometimes when we're reading the newspaper, we're just scanning down through the words as quickly as anything. So that's one of the exercises that will help you increase the rate at which you read. Fantastic. So we need to do that quite often and regularly enough. Just like treadmill exercise, we want to be if you want to be able to jog a bit more faster, longer distances, you got to go out regularly. Similarly, we got to do that 4-minute exercise. Okay, so what else can we look at here in terms of our speed reading? Well, the next thing is comprehension. You know, we spoke there just about the speed, but what about comprehension? What can we do to improve comprehension? Well, there's a number of things. We can think about a jigsaw, we can think about keywords, and we can think about questions. So what do you mean by the jigsaw? Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever made a jigsaw puzzle? And do you think it's easier to make a jigsaw puzzle if you see the picture first? Absolutely. Okay, so it's the same with a book. If we want to get the information out of this book, it's a lot easier if we see a picture of what's in there first. So what might we do for that? Well, we can scan down through the contents, get a sort of a mind map or a skeleton of what's in the book. We can read the back of the book, we can look at some of the pictures in the book, whatever, but get some sort of an idea of what's in there so that our brain starts making connections between different parts of the book. Secondly, the second thing we can do is look at keywords. Now, they did some research in Florida on what percentage of words in a typical book are keywords. So just think about that for a moment yourself. What percentage of words in a typical book do you think are keywords? Well, in this research that they did, they said between 4 and 11%. Between 4 and 11% typical book are keywords. So that means if we can read and draw out those keywords out of the book, then we have it. So if we read between 4 and 11% of the book, we'll have the main gist of that book. Now, of course, it will come back to the goal as to why we're reading in the first place. So if I'm reading a book because I'm doing some sort of a medical exam or a law exam, or I need to know minute detail, then obviously, you know, we're going to have to go into more detail in the book. If I'm just reading it for an overview, then it's obviously I don't need to go into as much detail. But primarily, a lot of the time when we're speed reading, at least what I encourage, is to scan for the keywords, the main idea, the key patterns, the key ideas that the author was trying to capture in their book. So that's the second thing we can do to help us with comprehension. And the third thing is that as we're going through the book, you know, particularly if it's a book we want to learn from rather than a novel that we were just reading for enjoyment, and that is to always have questions in our mind. Why did they give it this title? So if we take a title like Clearing the Way for Your Dreams, you know, why was that chosen as a title? What does that mean, clearing the way for your dreams? I wonder what that could mean. So as we're asking these questions and we're reading them, then we'll notice the information that's answering the questions. So there's three things that we can do. First of all, getting the big picture, going from the big picture to the small picture. That's the jigsaw metaphor. Keywords, remember, between 4 and 11% of any book are keywords, give or take. And number three, having the questions in our mind that we're trying to answer as we're processing the information within the book. So that's how we can improve comprehension.